We are middle of the end of the second paragraph of Zion, correct? We finished it. No. Good morning, Moishe. Okay. I think the middle of the end of Zion. So he's saying that the avodah which she described till now, the two dargis of Yaakov and Yisrael, avodah saberurim, and then the higher avodah saberurim, which is the avodah of Shabbos Yisrael, and all of the parallels. And as he explained it in the end of Ois Vav, that there's the avodah of Kibbutz Elikim Litov, that being close to Hashem is good for me, and then there's the avodah of Kibbutz Elikim, of complete bittul. That's the emes hataynog. That's the v'karasa l'Shabbos Eineg, the higher level of avodah oichel mitoich oichel. And hence we understand that to go from the darga of Kibbutz Elikim Litov, which is in Kedusha, but to the level of avodah where it's about the Eibishter himself, that requires an ahar dinur, a cleansing, in a way more difficult than the first one, like you wrote in your article, Aaron. Remember your article? What? The transition from becoming, you wrote to the reader that you assume, the transition from not from to from, was a greater transition than being from and Chabad. And at some level it is. That's the union over here. That's the first hard note. But then in Kedusha itself, the whole Avodah Chassidus is not a hard note in a way that's much more difficult. It's much more difficult because what's wrong with the way things were till now? Find it from a Yid, a Chassid, with all of the milas. That's number one. And number two, it's more difficult because it's never ending. The first Avodah, you cleanse, finished it. Avodah is no Avodah, you bring mitzvahs. Done. Expression, done, move on, accomplished. This avodah of Heder HaMetzias is a never-ending demand and never lets one rest, which actually is the point you make in your article too, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So that's the Indian. That's the avodah that he explained it at the end of his Vav. Then he said that our avodah precipitates the Giluim Lasid Lavai. So therefore, Lasid Lavai, we find the Mashiach also the two in Yon. The first stage is the Yilchem Lechemes Hashem, and then V'hei Hashem L'melech Al Kol Ha'aretz, Menucha and Shalva. Yidden devoted themselves exclusively to Torah v'Chachmasa. In the words of the Rambam Hilchos Tshuva. Yimtzu lehem argoya v'yirbu b'Chachma. They will have peace and they'll be able to increase in Chachma. And likewise, continuing in the Zion is the avodah. Then also, there's also the avodah then of Shabbos. That's the avodah of the. That's the Suda we speak of, the Sherabod, the Levi Yosin. To explain that, you brought down the statement from the Alter Rebbe and the pasuk in Yoel, "Bachaltem echel." The double expression: you will eat that which is eaten. Obviously, you'll eat food. What's the Bachaltem echel? So there's two levels of achila. Lower level and the higher level. And he says in the Kota Torah that the neshamas now become food. They are the dogim of basar of the neshamas of Lasid Lavai, which is very strange. He asks a simple question. Food is not from a person. Food, nourishment you get from daimim, tzimeach, chai, but not from a daber. Cannibalism is forbidden. So what does this mean? It's a very puzzling statement. Could be in the Kota Torah there, the Sherish is, the source of this is earlier. I don't think it's the Alter Rebbe. Didn't look it up. Akoponim, so to understand this, it was the Zohar, or earlier, Sifrei Kabbalah. So to understand this, he brought the pasuk, V'zarati lachem. V'zarati is a basis Yisrael, Zera Adam v'Zera Beim, also a nevuah of Lasid Lavai, that there be an increase in seed amongst the Jewish people, we will flourish. And Rashi, I told you, h'tשכ, Zera Behema goes also on Yidden, at a lower level. It's not a Nevesh Bahamis, it's Nevesh Alikiz, V'zarati, Nevesh is saying, it's coming from me, it's my seed. It's also implying the idea of my child, my seed, not just the imagery of planting a seed, but it's my seed. That's the diuk here. This is the Oz Arul Tzaddik, the light that's implanted, that's seeded into the Tzaddik, which is every Yid. That's the Neshama. But in the Neshama itself is Zera Adam, Zera Beim. So you remember, this is the last time we learned that Zera Adam is the gematria, Adam gematria ma, so, right? Basically, Atzilus, beyond creation. And Zera Behema, the gematria ban, is Shem ban, where the Milo is the Ois Hey, which is Malchus. So that's the low neshamas. So the pasuk says, Adam Behema Tishi Hashem. We say this every Shabbos since the Koscha. Right? Hashem says that I will save Adam and Behema. Both. So now that's what we're up to now. Yeah. Pretty much. Well, then by the number 102, page Reish Chav Zayin, Moishe have it there at the end of Oy Zayin. Yeah. Then Amar Adam Behema Tishi Hashem, Adam Behema Yachad, both levels, because Kivin Shishneim Batzilus. Zon Malchus, it's all Atzilus. Oilam Achtosh, Ligur Charab, about which it says no evil touches you. Elo, it's however, Sheshom Gufa Yeshnoi, Achilik bin Zer Adam Zer Behema. What's the difference between these two Avodas? Zer Adam and Zer Behema. I'm just reminded that Shavra Fu Shleimo Krevek Gedalia Shem Tov. You know what Gedalia Shem Tov is? You know what Gedalia is? No. Wait. What's that? He used to. Not anymore. He needs a Fu Shleimo. Baruch Hashem is much better than he was. It's a message. He is with us, and he should continue. But for He is the founder of the Shluchim office, and he is a wonderful chassid. It's behemoth. I mean, this is on the internet. It's going to be heard, but I'm not exaggerating. He is a legend in his own mind, in his own time. He's younger than me. He's a very dohiben young man. So when the Dalia takes mashke, this is you haven't seen it, but he would be saying this. I think we say Zera Behema, but yeah, Zera Behema. But then Zera Behema, Tzadikim, the Rebbe, Zera Odom, the Korav Zel. It's just a line he used to say, amongst other things. I'll just tell you what kind of guy he is. When he went, my brother told me, that he went on Shlichus to London, it was a Bacher. He had like a briefcase. This was his entire possessions with a little briefcase. But here Shlichus, whatever it is. That's the little snapshot of Gedalia. So Lazayin gesund. So Zachor L'Toiv V'Livracha Gesundheit. Okay, so Kvolo Sayin was so what's the Inyan of Mersh's boy the girls involved? We said before we started the shir this morning. The Chasher Avoide by from the Kirvas Elikim Litoiv. When the Avoide is that he loves Yiddishkeit fulfills him, it brings him so much. And that's obviously the starting point. But it's the Lidaike, but it's all and in this level, friends, there's endless levels in the Litoiv also. There's endless levels, relatively speaking, endless levels in the Hergesh HaYeshes, Litoiv. can be in very, very subtle level. I tell you something, I think I mentioned this by Fabrengen once. There was a shock for me. Everybody knows the famous Fabrengen of Purim Toshin. It's a very difficult thing. I mean, I don't really understand it fully, but I'll share it with you. So it was a famous Fabrengen that took a lot of mashke, and then the Fabrengen, the Rebbe says, the famous story of the Mittel, the Chassid of the Mittel Rebbe, right, who wanted to get a pass on not having to Chazach Siddur coming from Lubavitch and going to Lubavitch because Rebbe said he was a very talented young fellow. Rebbe said a nice Shonus about describing him. A good Baal Hasbara. Anyway, he used to he would get yeshes. He would get a sense of, it would feed his ego because he was such a good teacher. So the Rebbe told him famously at Sibyl often did learn about Chassidus aus der Daven. The onion should become of you, but Chassidus aus der, if they say aus der Reden, should say Chassidus. Once explained an onion itself is not edible. If you put the onion in the food, then so Sibyl, when you let messages of this, you're there to enhance others. That's the bottom line. You're giving others a taste, the Geschmack in Chassidus. And Sibyl is all from Diveren. They should be deprived because of your problem with Yeshes. Good. So we always thought, and even I listening to the Fabrengen over there until I heard it recently again, that the Yeshes was that he just feels, he sees that he's well received, and it strokes his ego. That wasn't his Yeshes. That was Yeshes was. How did the thing the Rebbe says? His Yeshes was that he, listen to this, he could bring a nachas the Mittel Rebbe. Not that the Mittel Rebbe's will is carried out, but that he can carry it out. Which reminds me of another story I told you in the past. He's at very high levels. That's why it's an endless struggle. And, as everybody knows, the problem with Chabad is it's never, ever enough. Not that they want more, they want less. So this story that I heard from Rabbi many years ago, who said the name of Rabbi Shem Tov. Rabbi actually said at the time, he doesn't know what the bench himself held by. Now, this is actually grandfather of Gedalia Shem Tov. Ben Shem Tov is one of the 10 Siddim the Alter Rebbe called, the Fieding Rebbe called in and made a covenant in blood to give the last drop of blood for Yiddishkeit, to keep Yiddishkeit going in Russia. And he was a great legend. But this is very high madrege. What's the Inyan? Famous story. So Ben Shem used to say that, the Biel told us that when the Kaiser, the Tsar, would travel, he had to, there's a river. There's no time to build a bridge. He's got to go to the other side. So a soldier goes in, drowns, lies at the bottom of the murky depths. And on top of another soldier, and finally the king is able to cross. So the bench used to say that the Mesidus Nefesh is only the one. The true Mesidus Nefesh is the first guy. Does he know what the other guys are even going to do it? Because it's a volunteer thing. He didn't tell them, volunteer. Maybe it's all futile. The one at the end that he knows that the king's going to put his boot on his back. He has the satisfaction of knowing that he gave his life up for the cause, but he accomplished something. That's not Mesidus Nefesh. Bench says. There's a word in Russian for this. This word chalat for something that you. Okay, this is the point over here. This is an endless struggle and there's endless levels. So again, back in the Maamar. So when the Avodah is sheyesh hagesh hametzias. I just want to tell you some beautiful words coming at the end of this Maamar. Like I was talking such high madreges. We shaykhs to this. Next oyster can be somebody that convert. So when the person feels himself as something, so when there's a metzias lamata, when creation, whatever level feels itself, it's a barrier to feeling the truth of Hashem. If I feel myself, to whatever degree, I'm taken with myself. To that degree, I'm excluding the truth of his being. We cannot connect or take literally the truth of the Eibishter's being, as he is, because as he is, it's exclusive. It's tainted muvadai. So this is the avodah, this is levels of neshamas. The behemoth does the right thing, but the behemoth's whole world is self. The behemoth can't even consider itself. We can consider ourselves. How true am I? There's the element of consideration, but we're always going to be bound to the self. That's the behemoth that is bound to itself. Movement, so it's understood. Now this whole thing of being consumed and eaten, what does it mean? What does it mean that the neshamas now will be food? What's not a nice word for food? Whatever. For the neshamas, when Mashiach comes, since now it's the same neshama, but the holding the level of Zera Behema, the will be elevated. The Gabi neshama should begin the Zera Adam to the level of Zera Adam. Be an elevation. That's what the meaning means. That's the idea of eating, is to elevate, to reject the psoilus. What's the psoilus? The hergish of litov. This is Nahar Dinur again. It's high in the river of fire. And to the level of Kirvas Elikim Tov Mitzad Elikus. Dr. said before Sevdalid, Shagam Lachin Nahar Dinur, even after the first Nahar Dinur, Shunyan Shal Birur, which the neshama faces after it leaves this world, like ordinary eating, which has to reject the waste. So there's explained even in the body, there's different levels of the sentence. The body is refined, the food is refined and refined after the first major rejection. It's still a refinement as it ascends from the stomach to the heart to the brain. You'll eat the food that has already been refined. Then it becomes now truly part of him, and even a higher level of integration in the self, meaning a higher bitl in the self. Next from the he goes from strength to strength, in many levels, higher and higher. Clear? Yeah. Yeshloim, beautiful words coming. So this is not just the avodah that will be then, they will hold by the level of as he's describing now, not kivus and likim litoy, but this avodah is also zman hagolos. How is that possible? Heck, if they said before that the avodah of Shabbos, Shabbos is Yom Shekuli Shabbos, really connected to Lasad Lovay. They're saying it's Shaykhis to avodah Achlal in zman hagolos. How so? He says in time, the Pirish Maimer Azal, that the Chazal say, and then Rashi brings it, that at the beginning of the Eibush, the world with Midas HaRacham, with Midas HaDin, the Eibush saw that the world can't endure, so Shittif Ima in Midas HaRacham, he partnered with it, the Midah HaRacham. Whatever the whole Asbodad is, he didn't know it. Obviously he did, it's all Seder. Now the Rebbe says there, so where's the Midas HaRacham? I made a dikavot, quote Netanya. Shayuchah Perek Hey. The Hainu is Galus Elikus. Where's the Midas HaRachmim? The revelation of Elikus, Al Tzadikim, V'Oises, or Meisum Shebetayim. The Eibishter gives us Tzadikim, and there are miracles. And here we see the Shittif Ima Midas HaRachmim. A Jew gets a glimpse and experiences, maybe in his own personal life, in Yonim Hayat Teva. And especially they are Anisim Shemarim Tzadikim Anhigi Adai. Not Stam Tzadikim, but especially the Nisim that are shown to the Tzadikim, the leaders. Because what's shown to them, they share. And through them, they share this with all those who have a connection to them. The Basa Reisha Gufa also, the Gemara says, and those of Edavin and many halachas, that where the head is, the whole body goes, meaning to say that the person's presence is defined by where his head is. So the head being the tzaddikim, the manigi adoir, so they experience, by them is this gilul elikus, so they draw that down, the mata beteva. They draw it down also in nature, shagam shom yila mailim teva, that a yid who is, his world is teva, he's a zera behema, he has a connection to higher than teva. Sha'inyan hanes, that's the inyan of this, which the Rabbi and Magal lifts a person out of his morass, out of his matzav, and his whole world. And the pasuk that we quoted in Yoel, that this whole diuk, that is the achila after the achila, the pasuk told him, the pasuk concludes, Hashem, they shall provide this for you, and it will be wondrous. What's the diuk? Hafli pella, shnamshichim mechinas pella elyon. Pella goes on keser elyon. Pella goes on the level of keser. Basis aleph, aluf, pella, wonder. Pella elyon, as he's referring to atik. Lahafli liyisim bachem. This is what Abish is revealing to you, the pnimis of alikos, where Enid Mulvadi is revealed, and the Yid is confronted with, even in his manak golos, he confronts with the truth of alikos, as alikos is, mitzad it's the truth. And the tzaddikim reveal this to him and inspire him and lift him. And it's drawn all the way down to his world of action, because the pasuk says, "She'asa yimachem lahafli." That this dargah of Pele, lahafli, Pele Elyon, is drawn down, and he connects to it and relates to it in his physical world. He sees then the meifes and the nes and the wonder, literally, of Elikos in his own life. This is the shittif imam midas harachamim that the Eibishter fused in the Gvura, in Teva, the union of Rachamim. His mercy is Tiferes, which is Oile to Pnimis HaKes. Now here comes the word I wanted to tell you. Now this thing, what thing? That the tzaddikim and Magala, this Kerl Gam Yediyas Adova, just knowing about it. Just knowing about it. When the sinas koyach l'chol echad miYisrael, this in gives and it's in a skirch every yid, knowing about what's the it. The it is the moishe. So if it happens to you, but knowing about all these madregas and all these inyonim, just learning it in Chassidus, learning it in the Maimon, learning about this Aveda of Bittul B'Mitzias and the higher Gan Eden Elyon, as he's describing now, and Aveda Mitzad the Aveda, not even at the highest levels of of self-fulfillment and self-realization, knowing these truths. When the sinas koyach, this itself is an empowerment. Used to koch this a lot. It's the first place, the primary place that in Avodah there's got to be attitude. There's got to be knowing what the emphasis is. Siddush hanocha, the right outlook, the right attitude. You know, it's talking only here, but sof kol sof, if it's here, it's gonna filter down in some way or another. You have to keep on feeding it here and working to cross the narrow bridge, which is the neck, which separates the seichel, that which I know to be true, to the heart and to the feelings. But it's got to start there. So this is, so knowing is in Eskeikel Chalechad Israel to every Yid, Lavi Davidos, if you Mamodim Matzovei, is man Leibim Kemet, made the words by saying these in the mind of friends. We'll be mamshichet in our personal matzah. So do the avodah lefi mamodai according to his level, 2 words, his station, matzovei in his matzav, his mana in his time, and kaim in his place. In other words, in every single containment that defines him. This is my maimed, this is my matzav, it's my time, I was born this time, in this place. Interesting to be misbrained between maimed and matzav. It's a lashon we say all the time, but it means two things. Matzav means I'm stronger, nitzav. At any rate, all of the all of the realities we deal with, we had this in a both in the first level of engaging the world, Hibit of and Bi'Yakov, that there shouldn't be iniquity as he engages the world, sin, transgression, lo Hibit, and the higher Avodah of Shabbos, the higher bitter, that's the Avodah of Israel, and there's no Omal, there's no effort there. It's an Avodah of Menucha, the true Tainuk, so he gets in the Sinas Koyach and all of these Avodas just by knowing, by being revealed to him, by learning this itself is in the Sinas Koyach. Of course, he had the choice to ignore that too. Free choice is never taken away. Truth is, it is taken away. So of course, we have to do tshuva. That we can delay the process. So let's go a little bit further. So this is what the pasuk says, that he doesn't see Oven Bi'Yakov and Turl B'Yisrael Shebachol Hadarges, all of the levels that we described earlier. Hein Ato, now on Zman HaGolus. Hein B'Yimbeis HaMashiach, likewise, B'Yimbeis HaMashiach Yeshno B'Yisrael in Yonim Bi'Yakov Yisrael. There's the two Avodas of Yaakov Yisrael. Hainu Kashay Yeshno in the Yaakov. So when the Jew is engaged in Avodah of Yaakov, Hashem V'Yod B'Yiches Be'Ekev. Why was he called Yaakov? Because his hand was holding onto the heel of Esau, which means he's dealing with Esau. This is the Avodah of Yaakov. As a Avodah of Yaakov, here is not inspired. You can't be inspired while you're doing the Avodah. It's an evidence Kabbalah Zoyel. But here the Abish has to say it's a very scary place. But don't be afraid. Al Tira of the Yaakov. And here he has to bavar and has to be careful. There shouldn't be stumbled into iniquity, into sin. But it's great toil. The toil we can't take away. That's part of the avodah, the omal. But the assurance is that if we exert ourselves and give it out all, lo hibit of it. The Eibishter, as he said earlier, steps in and saves him from this deadlock at best between the Yitzhahara and Yitzhahara. And what is required? They had something they didn't say before. He had something before, and that is at least age the kedusha. There has to be the fire. He's referring here to Avodah Satfila. He said Avodah Satfila. That's the Avodah of Avodah Seberurim. Is really the Nitzutzik kedusha become elevated in our davening. So it's all part of our Avodah Seberurim. So it has to be the chayis, the age the kedusha. That's where he fuels the fire. Because the ilishlis afshori is in order to negate the possibility of the mitzias of Edalumas of getting excited and the fire of the opposite of Kedusha. That's how it is when Zman HaGolus. Then these two in Yonim. First he spoke, level one is the Altir of the Yaakov. What's the parallel? That there's the first stage is a battle. So much so that even about the Abish to the pasuk says, it's one of the Haftarahs, Edom, who has come from, literally from Rome, soiled of clothing from Bitzra. Your clothing are soiled with blood, metaphorically describing that the Eibishter has slain the enemies. Rome, and it's metaphorically the Levushim Lemaila are soiled with blood. So not the Mashiach is saying, but the Eibishter himself is engaged in this battle. Shingin HaGevuras, that's thinking of Gevuras, battle. Namapum, Charbelecher, He said, he mentioned this before in Sev Gimel, that this is the perpetual fire that's burning on the Mizbeach. This is the fire of what? Of consuming the resistance and elevating the sparks and Sebig Avodah. So it's the Avodah, not only the Yid, the Avodah, the Mashiach, and the Avodah, the Kavayach of the Eibishter, calls and Asa the Avodah Shalifnei Zeh. And all of this is achieved through the Avodah before this. That's what the Mesa Mashiach of the order of the Matz of the order of a Zoyama, that Klippa is cursed and rejected. In all those things which cause it, quoted earlier, the one who falls from his level is called death. So Yid goes from death to life. That's the Avodah and Zman Agolos. Shetzarich lahavchom lashis mem afar Yaakov v'Reba Yisrael, as Bilam said. Who can? So was said earlier, right? Who can count the dust of Yaakov and the Reva, the quarter, but also Reva goes on the birth. Hashem counts the moment of conception of the tzaddikim. So earth, which is where the body returns to death, becomes now kedusha for Yaakov, Rabbi Yisrael. They from Bimona who can count it, meaning Bilam said that even in finitude in this world, the world of numbers, it's drawn bligvul, higher than numbers. Okay, we'll revisit that a little bit tomorrow with more detail and conclude the night.